hereby called to order. I would like to acknowledge the presence of Senator Amy Marcos. Ma'am, thank you for joining us. And Senator Bongo. Andyan ba online si Senator Bongo? Who are both online. And other members of the Public Order and Dangerous Drugs, Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs, who are online. Thank you for attending to this hearing. Today's hearing is composed of two parts. The first part is a continuation of our consideration of the bills regarding drug rehabilitation, including Senate Bill number 242, authored by Senate President Soto III and Senator De Lima, and Senate Bill number 1099, authored by Senator Cynthia Villar. Second, we shall also take into consideration bills that institutionalize anti-drug abuse councils in provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays. Senate Bill number 1935, filed by Senate President Soto III. Senate Bill number 1952, filed by yours truly, and House Bill number 7812, filed by Representative Barbers and others. At this point, may I please request the committee secretary to recognize the guest and the resource person into this hearing.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
The following guests are present, sir. Representing the DILG is Yusek Rico Judge Javier Echeverry. Representing the Department of Justice is State Counsel Charles Romulus Cambalisa. Representing the Department of Budget and Management is Assistant Director Jane Abelia, Miss Najib Lira Virtudes, Joyce De La Cruz, and Mark James Evangelista. From the Department of Health, sir, DOH is represented by Dr. Jose Bienvenido Liebres. From the Department of Social Welfare and Development is Mr. Garrett Paris. And from the PDEA, sir, they are represented by Mr. Patrick A. Madayag, Mr. Ren Javier, and Attorney Michael Manjares. From the Civil Service Commission, Civil Service is represented by Attorney Alma Foronda and Attorney Cecil Joy Mijares. From the DDB, sir, DDB is represented by Undersecretary Benjamin P. Reyes and Attorney Philip Joseph T. Vera Cruz. And from the Philippine National Police, sir, PNP is represented by Chief PNP De Bolsinas, and I'll be mentioning the name, sir, but not necessarily according to seniority, sir. Major General Alfred Corpus, Brigadier General Steve Ludan, Brigadier General Ronald Oli. Wala pa ba? But may check dito. Wala pa. Okay. Brigadier General Luisito Magnaye. And Major General Marnie C. Marcos, sir. Sir. Ano na? Major. and Brigadier General Ronald O. Lee. Morning, sir. From the National Bureau of Investigation, it is represented by Attorney Ross Jonathan Galicia. And for the record, sir, we have also position papers given to us by the Department of Justice, the Dangerous Drug Board, and the Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines. Other agencies have already also been invited, and they will be coming in later, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. I would like to greet the personally present Chief PNP, General De Bolsinas, and Major General Marnie Marcos, and Major General Alfred Corpus, Brigadier General Ronald Lee, the PDIG, General Steve Ludan, the Crime Laboratory Director, and General Luisito Magnay, Health Service Director, the PNP. Thank you, Dibol, for bringing all your pertinent steps that can share with us your inputs towards crafting this law, this bill. So maraming salamat for your presence. And afterwards, after you have delivered your piece, kung busy ka masyado, okay lang if you want to leave. Dahil alam kong trabaho ng GPNP, masyadong busy. Anyway, iwan mo lang dito yung mga staff mo na kinakailangan naming sumagot kung meron kami tatanong. Ha? No problem kung aalis ka. Thank you for your presence.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. We are always supporting all the hearings of the Senate, sir. I have canceled all my schedule, sir, to attend this hearing, sir. I will go through and through, sir. We are always behind you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Kag kinukonsensya mo pa ako, ha? Anyway, thank you. Thank you, Devon, for coming over. I will give my opening statement. When our children make mistakes, do we immediately condemn them and call them hopeless? Definitely not. Being a father myself, I have long taught myself to extend my patience for as long and as far as I can, while at the same time making sure that my children learn their lesson and do better. It is clear, then, that the necessary approach to discipline must always be twofold. First, correction, and second, rehabilitation. Do we not stop with merely instilling a sense that what was done is wrong, because we must also take steps to teach what is right. This is the same twofold principle that guides our practices in dealing with drug users. First, correction, and second, rehabilitation. This is also the same principle that is at work in the bills under consideration today. Noong ako ay Chief PNP, mahigit 1 milyong drug users ang sumuko noong ipinatupad namin ang war on drugs. Alinsunod na rin sa kagustuhan ni Pangulong Duterte na wakasan ang lumalalang suliranin sa droga ng ating bansa. Hindi may tatanggi na ang salot ng droga ay hindi lamang public order problem, kundi isa ring malaking public health problem. Hindi lang po ang pandemyang COVID-19 ang kinakaharap natin sa kasalukuyan. Kinukonsidera rin ng United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes na isang global problem ang drug abuse na kailangan nating tugunan. Katulad ng paglaban natin sa COVID-19, kakailanganin ang bawat miyembro ng komunidad para labanan ang illegal na droga. We need all the help we can get, ika nga. Mayroon din tayong mga nakalatag na mga suhestyon, mga konkretong hakbang sa patuloy nating pagsugpo sa illegal na droga. Pero para lalo nating mapabilis ang tagumpay sa gira na ito, may ilang mga bagay tayo na nais bigyang pansin at konsiderasyon. First, there is a need for us to reduce bureaucracy in the process of admission for rehabilitation centers. Second, the insufficient number of rehabilitation centers in the country moves us to ask if the solution would perhaps lie in the establishment of drug abuse treatment and rehabilitation centers in every province and city. Furthermore, the persistence of the drug problem calls upon us to ensure that all sectors are involved in battling it, from the province down to the barangay level. We aim to shed light on these issues in this committee hearing with urgency, considering that the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime reported that around 269 million people used drugs worldwide in 2019, while over 35 million people suffer from drug abuse disorder. We need to fight this problem on all fronts with integrated health responses to supply and demand, community involvement on prevention and rehabilitation of drug users, continuous law enforcement operations, and the possible reimposition of the death penalty for big-time drug traffickers. The proliferation of illegal drugs has destroyed families and contaminated the innocent lives of our communities. But rather than simply watching and allowing evil to unfold, we must lead our families and communities to fight back, keeping in mind that the reigning principle is twofold. First, correction, and second, rehabilitation. Thank you and good morning. Before I proceed, I would like to recognize the virtual presence of Attorney Gilbert T. Espinosa, Executive Director of the Department of Finance, Police Colonel Jima C. Binluan, the PNP, Police Brigadier General Sermonia, PNP, who is online, and representing DSWD, Director Helen Susara, also online. At this point, may we hear an opening statement from Senator Amy Marcos, ma'am, if you have any? Senator Marcos, ma'am? Okay. Baka nasa kabilang hearing si Ma'am Amy. But anyway, para maging matiwasay ang ating pagdinig sa araw na ito, sundin natin ang pagkasunod-sunod na mga topics ng bills for discussion. Part 1 ay yung drug rehabilitation bills. Number 1 is SBN 242 by Senate President Soto III and Senator De Lima. Number 2 is SBN 1099 by Senator Cynthia Villar. And part 2 is the Anti-Drug Abuse Council's bills. 1 is SBN 1935 by Senate President Vicente Soto III and SBN 1952 by yours truly. HB 7812 received by the Senate on December 3, authored by Senator Barbers and others. Also, we would like to recognize the virtual presence of Mr. Renante Javier of PDEA. So, from here, we would like to hear from our resource persons. So, andito ngayon, physically present si Chief PNP, General Debold Sinas. You want to deliver your opening statement?
Thank you, Honorable Senator, sir. First, I'd like to thank for inviting us to discuss and present our positions on the following Senate Bill number 242, entitled An Act Streamlining the Process for the Admission of Drug Dependents in the Government Rehabilitation Facilities, amending for the purpose Section 3, 54, 77, 81, otherwise known as the Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002, the Senate Bill number 1099, entitled the Act Strengthening the Government Efforts Toward the Treatment and Rehabilitation of Drug Dependents or People Who Use Drugs by establishing drug abuse treatment and rehabilitation center in every police seat and city in the country, appropriating funds thereafter and for other purposes. Senate Bill number 1935 and 1952, entitled An Act Institutionalizing Anti-Drug Abuse Council in the province, cities, municipalities, and barangays, and appropriating funds therefore and other purposes, including Senate Bill number 399 or 62, 513, and 658. The PNP expresses its support to the swift passage of the foregoing legislative measures aimed at strengthening the government capabilities in the rehabilitation and integration of individuals who use, abuse, or are addicted to dangerous drugs. The declaration of the President to rid the Philippines of dangerous drugs revealed the true nature and extent of the problem visiting the country. Thousands of individuals openly admitted to being addicted to the dangerous drugs and volunteered to participate in various community-based treatment and rehabilitation programs. Admittedly, these programs required a medical-based approach to ensure their effectiveness and, more importantly, prevent the lapse of the participants. Further, pursuant to the provisions of Republic Act number 9165, the voluntary submission of a drug dependent to confinement, treatment, and rehabilitation in government or accredited rehabilitation centers at present requires the intervention of the court. The long and arduous nature of the application negatively impacts the desire of individuals who prefer immediate and anonymous treatment at these facilities. If enacted, these measures will streamline the procedures in the treatment of drug dependents and allow for faster administration of the needed intervention. Moreover, by institutionalizing the Anti-Drug Abuse Council nationwide, the local government units will be given appropriate imprimatur to sustain the program of the government in addressing the menace of dangerous drugs. The PNP, being one of the law enforcement agencies bearing the brunt of the campaign against dangerous drugs, welcomes the expanded involvement of LGUs and allied agencies to provide a comprehensive and holistic approach and come up with the long-term solutions to the perennial problem. Personally, sir, would like also to consider by the Honorable Senator if the PNP caught using illegal drugs during random drug tests be mandatorily directed to join rehabilitation center. As of now, once our personnel is caught using dangerous drugs, we have just dismissed them and no intervention po, sir. So there's a tendency that they might continue after they are dismissed from the police service. Thank you very much, sir, for seeking the position of the PNP on these important legislative matters. Rest assured of our continued support on matters of mutual concern. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay po tayong lahat, sir.
Thank you, General
Mr. Chair?
Sinas. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mr. Chair. Si Amy po.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am. You have the floor.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was sponsoring a bill in the other meeting, but I would just like to extend my support to all these bills and the other drug anti-drug efforts. And I just wanted to clarify as a former LGU the details kasi napakarami pong bill na pending sa ating chair. Dapat maliwanag lang na hindi overlapping yung functions ng drug rehab center sa Bahay Pag-asa kasi marami-rami rin ang mga naitatag. So dapat na medyo klaro. At yung more proactive role ng DOH, DSWD, NGOs, kailangan siguro ilatag natin ng maigi. At the same time, requesting from everyone a status. Ilan na ba talaga yung mga drug rehab centers na operational? Kasi hindi namin, for example, sa Ilocos Norte, we couldn't make it operational at wala kaming trained personnel, wala kaming health workers o doktor na talagang sapat ang training. So that was my concern about this bill about drug rehab. And just very quickly, doon naman sa ADAC, siguro kinakailangan na iklaro rin natin yung number of officials para maiwasan yung pagiging politicized lalo na sa 2022. Alam naman natin, malapit-lapit na rin yung eleksyon. And also the clear-cut compensation kasi kung minsan talagang umaasa na rin ang mobilization fund yung iba para sigurado na makapag-kilos sila. And of course, right now with COVID, we know that the anti-drug abuse councils should be safeguarded and provided with health protocols. Yan lang po. And I'm hopeful that these concerns be addressed in the process of the hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Senator Aimee, for your inputs. Everything is recorded, and we will consider that at the committee level. And for your information, ma'am, we have read also the position papers submitted by the different stakeholders, lahat ng agencies na involved dito, and we have taken note, and some of your comments also were part of their inputs. So we will consider everything, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much because there were questions that arose sa mga LGU kung makakover daw ng life insurance, medical assistance benefit, yung mga members ng ADAC. So with that, I thank you and we listen to our resource persons.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Good morning po. So, I would like to spread into the records na yung ating mga yung sinabit ninyo ng mga position papers were already being studied by our secretariat, and except itong kakapasok lang na latest na position paper coming from the DOJ, i-input natin ito ngayon. ULAP. Also, we have the position paper of the ULAP and then the Dangerous Drugs Board. So, we would like to hear from our resource persons. We'd like to hear from DILG, Yusik Rico Echeverry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning
You have the floor.
to all. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning to Senator Bato, the chairman of the Dangerous Drugs and Public Order, together with Senator Amy Marcos and Senator Bongo. This level lauds the objective of the herein proposed legislative measure, which recognizes the need to revitalize our current drug policies as it seeks to promote the country's anti-drug campaign by focusing on the increasing number of drug rehabilitation centers and facilities, as well as restructuring the process on how drug dependents may be admitted to government drug rehabilitation facilities. The subject measure presents an alternative approach on how to prevent and treat drug abuse addiction, which can lead to rehabilitation. Highlight that drug addiction is an illness or disease which makes it more of a public health issue than a criminal justice issue alone. Accordingly, this level supports the objective of the subject Senate bill, which is to establish Department of Health administered drug rehabilitation centers and facilities in every province and highly urbanized city in the country, that would provide the holistic care that drug dependents severely need. Further taking into account the stigma that drug substance abuse and crime go hand in hand. Treating drug addiction provides a solution to curb criminal behavior, as this will improve the well-being and social function of people with addiction disorder. Likewise, this level supports the intention to create a rehabilitation center for juvenile rugby users in order to save the youth who are going through various kinds of struggles by introducing healthy alternatives and by teaching them coping strategies necessary for them to reclaim a healthy and productive life free from any kind of addiction. However, as to the provision regarding imprisonment of parents of juvenile rugby users who are deemed neglected upon the intervention of the DSWD, this level recommends that it shall be clarified whether both parents would be imprisoned. In that regard, if both parents are to be imprisoned, who will be left to rear their child? Moreover, while it is true that the establishment of these centers or facilities may be costly, however, the benefit that it will provide will greatly outweigh such financial expenses. Simply put, the economic value of largely, if not completely, offset the expenditures for construction and treatment, considering that our safety and security must never be compromised, and nothing is more important than protecting human lives and saving humanity. Correspondingly, this level supports and lobbies the institutionalization of the Anti-Drug Abuse Council in all provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays all throughout the country, which will enable the LGUs to further continue the campaign against illegal drugs by granting them duties and responsibilities that will strengthen and ensure functionality of the respective ADAC. Last 2016, there were 1.8 million voluntary surrenderies, a phenomenon that happened only during the Duterte administration. The Davao experience, success of an active now Senator Bato and Wilkins Villanueva of PIDEA paved the way to the eradication of illegal drugs on the streets of Davao City. This good experience we want to institutionalize in all local government. The success of the fight against illegal drugs is the participation of the three partners of local agencies, meaning the local government, the police, and PIDEA. Without the participation of the three, the ADAC will not be successful. As a matter of fact, this department has been lobbying for this passage of law that seeks to create and institutionalize Anti-Drug Abuse Council in all provinces, cities, and municipalities and barangays nationwide, and has drafted a bill through myself, through yours truly, which essentially contains the same provision stated under the subject Senate bill. Because we wanted, Mr. Chair, that this good experience will be replicated even after the term of President Duterte, and the next administration will benefit from this system. Because, Mr. Chair, when we filed cases against local governments in the Ombudsman, they found out that there is no legal basis at all. Because the ADAC bill is just an executive order, or it's just a memorandum circular from the ILG. By this institutionalizing it into a law, there could be a penal clause that could give a chilling effect to all local governments who will not make their ADAC not just organized but functional. When you say functional, Mr. Chair, there should be community-based drug rehab, rehabilitating the 1.8 million surrenderies. There should be advocacy. There should be more into drug clearing operations together with PDEA. This is accountable. These activities will be inaccountable. This will be deliverables by the local government units together with the Philippine National Police. We want them to be more active. That's why, Mr. Chair, we are pushing for this, and hopefully at least 2 or 3% or more so 5% a budget that should be given at least to the Anti-Drug Abuse Council. If barangay protection for children is 1%, if the 5% was given to God, why can't we also give for Anti-Drug Abuse Council? Because majority of the inmates in the BJMP, 60% of them are drug-related. If we could resolve the drugs in our country, I'm sure 60% of our jails will be cleared of drug-related cases. Mr. Chair, this is the priority of the President, and we want this to be institutionalized. And this will be the legacy of the Duterte administration, not just our administration. This will be benefited by all and the next generations to come. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Yusik RJ Echeverry, for that very solid support for these bills. Thank you very much. Alam ko right from the start, your advocacy is really anti-drugs. Thank you again. And please stand by and maintain your connectivity. Dahil marami kaming questions na ibibigay sa iyo mamaya. Standby ka lang dyan. Thank you ha. Thank you very much. By the way, I would like to acknowledge the online presence of our dear Senator, Senator Bongo. Do you have your opening statement, Pre?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You have the floor. You have the floor.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Salamat, Mr. Chair. Sipag mo ngayon,
Kuta na pre, kuta. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to my fellow senators here, our resource persons, and everyone in attendance. Thank you for allowing me to make a short manifestation. Addressing the problem on dangerous drugs has always been a priority of the President. Indeed, the effects of the use and abuse of dangerous drugs on individuals and their families cannot be overstated. It destroys lives, it destroys families, and destroys entire communities. Pag meron pong naging biktima ng droga sa pamilya, maniwala kayo sa hindi, talagang sira na yung pamilya. Iwan mo yung pitaka mo dyan sa bahay mo na nakawin na bukas yung laman pag meron pong addict sa pamilya. Apektado talaga ang buong pamilya. We have already enacted laws directed towards subduing the criminals responsible for drug-related crimes. However, the elimination of drug-related crimes is merely one aspect of the two-pronged approach that must be taken in dealing with the effects of dangerous drugs. Apart from the fight for the nation's safety and security against the menace of illegal drugs, attention must also be directed towards the rehabilitation and recovery of its victims. Drug dependents are victims of drugs, criminals, and syndicates. They are people who have been preyed upon by opportunists seeking to take advantage of the downward spiral that takes place once drug addiction begins. Thus, drug dependents should be treated as victims in dire need of medical, psychological, and spiritual help, with a chance of being successfully reintegrated into society as health and productive citizens. Pwede naman po natin sila bigyan pa po ng panibagong buhay at kung sino po yung gustong magbagong buhay. As we continue to intensify our campaign against corruption, criminality, and illegal drugs, efforts to protect the welfare of the victims are also equally prioritized. This is in fulfillment of our President's promise of tapang and malasakit. In the past years, President Duterte inaugurated drug rehabilitation centers like the one in Bukidnon. Ito po yung pinuntahan rin po namin ni Pangulo with the Senator, our Majority Floor Leader, Senator Subiri. Sila po ang nag-identify po ng lugar. Sila po yung nag-donate ng lugar doon sa Bukidnon. And another one in Nueva Ecija. And also through the initiative of Senator Cynthia Villar, we also established a drug rehab center in Las Piñas. Today, we have 64 DOH accredited drug rehabilitation centers. Through these measures, we can now intensify our efforts in helping our fellow Filipinos take back their lives from the dark grip of dangerous drugs and the menace it creates. It is in this regard that I commend my colleagues here in pushing for these measures. Kapag magtutulungan ng executive at Kongreso, mas marami po ang magagawa natin at mas malayo po ang ating mararating. At now, Mr. Chair, and my colleagues here, if you would indulge me by allowing a few questions to our resource persons here in attendance.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Sa
Still have the floor.
Sa DOH po, based on our data, how many drug dependents do we have in the country? What are the current options for treatment and rehabilitation? Napapansin ko po sa ngayon, parang marami bang nag-a-avail po ng ating mga drug rehab centers? Ano ba ang ating data dito? Nakakatulong ho ba ang ating mga drug rehab centers para mabawasan po ang ating mga drug dependence, no? At ano ho ba ang pinakahuling data kung ilan ho ba ang reported drug addicts all over the country? Yung sinasabi po ng
Ano yan? Hindi yan sa atin? Thank you. Please continue, Senator Bongo.
Yun na po, I'm addressing my question to the DOH or sa ating DILG po.
Yes, DOH, can you respond? Andito si Dr. Ha? Ito si Dr. Yung paborito kong taga-DOH, si Dr. Jose Benvenido Liebres. Go ahead, Doc. Please respond to the question of Senator Bongo.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Your Honors. Thank you very much po for recognizing the Department of Health, and I would like to respond po sa mga questions of the Honorable Senator Bongo. Actually, sir, we were estimating at around more than 4 million on 2016 ang ating mga drug users, but because of the campaign of the government, it has a massive drop amounting to more than roughly 1.6, 1.7 million drug users that are presently based on the most recent study of the Dangerous Drugs Board for 2019. I think the DDB would be able to provide more information with regards to that, Mr. Chair and Honorable Senator Go. Now, as for the rehabilitation centers, Mr. Chair, we have 61 all over the country, both government and private. However, sa government po, sa DOH, we have 21 rehabilitation centers in almost all the regions except for Mimaropa and also on BARM. So yun na lang po yung dalawang regions natin na walang rehabilitation centers. We do not wish to maintain many rehabilitation centers, Mr. Chair, because we based on our studies, only 1 to 2% of our drug users become severe enough that will need confined rehabilitation centers or our residential rehabilitation centers. Mas kailangan po natin ang mga rehabilitation centers natin na tinatawag na outpatient rehab centers, which we believe would be accessible siguro on a provincial level, and community-based rehabilitation programs on our municipalities and even all the way down to the barangays. We believe also, Mr. Chair, that the LGUs, if they are capable, could also put up their rehabilitation centers. We have many different models that are available. So, lawak-lawak na po ang progreso natin. During the start of the Duterte administration, we only had 13 rehabilitation centers. in the span of 4 years, 5 years, naging 21 na po sila. And to mention the others that we have are the ones in Mega Rehabilitation Center in Nueva Ecija. We have, of course, yung nabanggit na po ni Senator Go, yung ating nasa Bukidnon, and then yung isa rin po na pinulungan po ni ating mahal na Senadora Cynthia Villar sa Las Piñas, among many others. Idagdag ko na rin po, ang Ilocos Region, meron po tayong 2 rehabilitation centers. Kasi I think this is a concern of our Honorable Senator, Ma'am Amy Marcos. We have one already in Dagupan, and we have one that was supposed to open 2020, yung ating San Fernando La Union Rehab. Kaya lang po, hindi natuloy yung opening because of COVID-19. So all in all, Mr. Chair, all in all, Your Honors, ang gusto po natin maka-establish ng isang buong network of services that will handle all the different levels of substance use, from the mild users, which will be catered by our community-based rehabilitation centers, the moderate users, which will be catered po by the outpatient rehabs, and then the severe users, which will be catered by the our residential rehab. And Mr. Chair, madagdag ko na rin po, this has all to be controlled in the within the central office of the Department of Health. So if you can remember po, our Senate Bill 513, which was authored by the Honorable Chair, na mag-establish din po tayo ng bureau sa Department of Health for Bureau of Drug Abuse Prevention and Control. Para po meron tayong isang network of services that is parallel to the universal healthcare and the appropriate networks po all over the country. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Senator Go.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you, Dr. Lebres. Before I recognize again Senator Bongo, I just would like to clarify from DOH, if yung sinasabi mo na existing 23 drug rehabilitation centers, are they all residential drug rehabilitation centers? Yung residential ba ito lahat?
Correct,
Yung
Mr. Chair. 21
naka-combine? Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chair. 21 rehabilitation centers, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead, Senator Bongo.
Mr. Chair,
Later, Yusek Echeverry, we have to recognize first Senator Bongo. Go ahead, Senator Bongo.
Mr. Chair, napapansin ko lang, gusto po natin bigyan ng pagkakataon itong mga drug dependents, mga drug addicts na magbagong buhay through rehab centers. Napapansin ko lang po sa mga ibang lugar na tinatanong namin, may mga naging biktima talaga ng drogang ito. Kaya lang po malalayo ang kanilang mga rehab centers. Halimbawa, kung nasa isang rehiyon ka, nasa isang rehiyon pa, na minsan po ay nadi-discourage po yung iba magbiyahe at saan ba yung rehab centers na ito. Pero napansin ko rin po itong rehab center natin sa Nueva Ecija nung binuksan at hanggang ngayon parang sa tingin ko po bumaba yata yung numero ng nagpapa-rehab. Kaya siguro pag-aralan natin ng mabuti bakit po ay hindi ganoon kadami yung gustong mag-avail po ng mga rehab centers natin sa ngayon. At lalo-lalo na po yung sa unang panahon po ng Duterte administration ay napansin ko maraming gustong magpa-rehab noon. Dahil kadalasan ay takot silang maybe mamatay dahil talagang panahon ngayon CPNP ngayon talagang tinutuluyan sila. Hindi ko na maalala sino ba yung CPNP nung kakaupo ni Pangulo. Talagang yung kampanya laban sa droga ay talagang napaka seryoso nun. Takot na takot yung mga drug addict. Kaya maraming gusto magpa-rehab. Ngayon medyo bumababa. Maybe siguro nababawasan na yung mga drug addict or ang problema rito, may mga rehab centers tayo. Ang problema how to convince itong mga drug dependents to avail. of this rehab centers. Salamat, Mr. Chair. Maalala niyo pa ba sino yung CPNP noong panahon na yun?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Pero alam nyo, si Senator Bongo, bakit masyadong master niya itong problema sa droga? Kasi kung ano yung experience ni President Duterte in fighting drug problem, yun din ang experience ni Senator Bongo. Pero mas malalim pa yung experience ni Senator Bongo dahil siya pa rin nangangalaga. After fighting the problem, siya pa rin nangangalaga sa mga biktima ng mga drug-crazed suspects. Siya pa rin nangangalaga sa pamilya ng mga drug dependents. So mas malalim talaga yung kanyang nalalaman about the drug problem of this country.
Mr.
Kaya
Chair.
thank you very much, Senator Bongo. I am diverting your question to another point so that
Yeah.
anyway,
Mr.
thank you.
Chair.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Can we
Mr. Chair.
recognize Senator Yusik Echeverry, please?
Yes, just to also answer with what Senator Bongo has been asking on the part of the DILG, sir, since we are in charge of monitoring our local governments, most especially the barangays, since health was been devolved to the local government, out of the 1.8 million voluntary surrenderers, based on our records, there were 500,000 of them who have committed in undergoing community-based drug rehab in the barangays. So it's a combination between barangays and the police, because the police also had their own community-based drug rehab. We actually, Mr. Chair, went ahead by also giving awards to local governments who are outstanding in community-based drug rehab. And even Dangerous Drugs Board right now created a policy for, and with DOH and DILG, created this DDB number 4 policy of community-based drug rehab. Paano yung magandang sistema para ma-institutionalize na? That's what we are trying to monitor under the Anti-Drug Abuse Council. Kaya nga po kailangan palakasin palatin lalo yung community-based drug rehab. But as the head of the .RC, Mr. Chair, pursuant to the executive order of the President, DILG being the chair of the .RC, ang napansin po namin, yung unang salvo natin ng kampanya sa paglalagay ng rehab center, it's laudable, Mr. Chair. Pinilit natin by provinces. Pero what we noticed, Mr. Chair, that pinilit natin by provinces or even by region, ang nangyari po, sa kagustuhan natin malagyan halos lahat ng sulok ng Pilipinas, ang nakita po namin, obserbahan po namin sa .RC, yung mga highly affected areas, parang kasi nga pinilit natin maglagay sa mga report areas. What do I mean about this, Mr. Chair? Metro Manila per se has the highest drug affectation. Second to Metro Manila is Regions 3, 4A, and Region 7. Kung titingnan nyo po, kung titingnan nyo yung quadrant, no, ng quadrant ng Metro Manila, mataas pa rin ang drug affectation at nagkukulang na rin po ang admittance sa mga ospital natin na severe. Why? Because kung susundan po natin yung sa Philippine National Police na 4 quadrants, yung Metro, yung National Police District East, West, South, ang butas po tayo sa Police District North. Ano yung North? Ito yung Kamanava area. Kaya nga po, si Mayor Joy Belmonte at Mayor Isko Moreno nagre-reklamo sa amin po na punong-puno na rin ng ibang mga taga-Caloocan doon sa rehabilitation ng Manila at rehabilitation ng Quezon City. Pero ang Caloocan, being second to the largest in Metro Manila, walang rehabilitation. What am I saying, Mr. Chair? Siguro, what we should do as a strategy now is to make a strategic study kung saan ba yung mas mataas ang affectation at tingnan ano ba dapat ang kailangan bigyan pa ng konting pansin. Although laudable yung paglalagay sa mga probinsya, para ma-maximize natin ang resources dahil hindi naman humarami ang pera natin rin sa mga suporta nang gagaling sa ibang bansa rin, that we have to be intelligent enough to put the rehabilitation center where it is most needed. So one of our resolution, Mr. Chair, na ibinigay na po namin at we passed is to create one for Calmana and hopefully study for Regions 3 and 4A kung kakailanganin pa ho. So that is now the forward-looking proposal of the .RC program, Mr. Chair. Para ho sa ganon, ma-maximize natin yung resources natin and we can put where it is most needed. But I also support what Senator Bongo is saying. We still also have to put rehabilitations in the provinces para accessible pa rin po sa iba. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, DDB, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead. Thank you, Yusek Echeverry. Go ahead, Yusek Benjamin Reyes.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Good morning, sir. And good morning, Sir Bong and Ma'am Aimee. Also to address the question of Sir Bong, no? Tama yung observation ni Sir Bong na yung sa rehab center talagang mas kukonti yung nag-a-avail, sir, no? Because based on the World Drug Report 2018, sir, only 0.7% ang masasabi nating severe use disorder. So napakaliit nun, sir. Just to give you an idea, Mr. Chair, right now, we have, aside from the government treatment and rehab centers na nabanggit kanina ni Dr. Bien, we also have private rehab centers, a total of 61 accredited treatment rehab centers, Mr. Chair. And then we also have 8 outpatient treatment and rehab centers. But what's more important, Mr. Chair, sabi ni Yusek RJ Echeverry kanina, we already provided services to the surrenderers, no? 690,092 surrenderers as of October 2020, no? And 772 LGUs already providing community-based services. So I agree, Mr. Chair, and this also addresses the observation earlier of Ma'am Aimee. Magastos po kasi talagang magpatakbo ng isang treatment and rehab center. I agree with the suggestion. Highly urbanized areas na lang, Mr. Chair, ang titignan natin. And then strengthen natin ang community-based programs. Anyway, majority, Mr. Chair, 90 to 95% ng mga users natin mapupunta talaga sa community-based program. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Yusek
Chair, DOH
Reyes. I just would like to go back to DOH. In line with the statement of DDB, Yusek Reyes, DOH, yung sinasabi mo kanina na ilan yung 23 ba yun? Na rehab centers established by DOH?
21, sir, na government DOH rehab facilities.
How many?
Yes po.
31?
21 rehab centers all over the country. 21, Mr. Chair. 21.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
What is your observation basing on the statement of DDB? Anong tingin mo?
Okay.
Do we need to de-operationalize some of this 31 or continue operating? Do we need them to continue operating?
Mr.
Or
Chair,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, together with the DDB and also with the DILG, we established what we call a client flow for wellness. It's like an algorithm, Mr. Chair, na kung saan natin ipapadala yung mga mild users all the way hanggang severe users. So based on that studies, Mr. Chair, recommendation namin is 1 rehab center per region, and also with for the highly urbanized cities. So pareho po kami ng directions. But however, Mr. Chair, isang network po ng services ang gusto po namin, ang nire-recommenda po namin. Magkaroon tayo ng outpatient sa bawat probinsya na kung saan po yung mga pwede silang, ito na po ang mag-establish ng network kung saan maaari po nating dalhin ang isang pasyente o i-direct ang isang pasyente sa iba-ibang uri ng programa. Likewise, Mr. Chair, ang binanggit kanina ng DILG and DDB on community-based rehabilitation programs wherein 690,000 ang natulungan na. That's very correct, Mr. Chair. That's part of the network of services, Mr. Chair. So kung babalikan po natin, ang i-recommenda po ng Department of Health is a network of services ranging from a community-based program to an outpatient program all the way up to a rehabilitation program. And Mr. Chair, siguro if I may add some statistical information, comparing our inpatient rehabilitation centers all the way from 2016 all the way to 2019. I also have stats for 2020 pero mahirap isama si 2020 because of COVID. Noong 2016 po, nagsisimula pa lang ang ating kampanya laban sa droga, 3,700 ang ating inpatients. All throughout the years, tumaas po ang ating inpatient sa 4,500 ang ating admissions. Bumagsak lang po noong 2020 dahil nga po sa COVID. But all in all, na-utilize naman po sila. So it is important po na continuously na meron tayo, pero wag po nating sobrahan ang locations. Yun pong binabanggit ni Undersecretary Echeverry sa Kamanava, it is a very good candidate po na lagyan ng rehabilitation dahil mataas pong affectation. So in the end, Mr. Chair, siguro ang recommendations namin is for is for both DOH together with other agencies such as the DDB to identify the type and location of service of the different types of rehabilitation centers and rehabilitation programs, to develop the staffing pattern and the training po associated with the rehabilitation centers, and the promulgation of guidelines for the staffing of DOH rehabilitation centers. So based on that, Mr. Chair, ang recommenda namin is a network of services na nag-range from community-based all the way po hanggang sa residential. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that comment, Dr. Lebres. So from your comments, I was able to surmise na wala tayong disagreement dito. Yung proposal natin na one inpatient drug rehabilitation center per region. So okay tayo dyan. Wala tayong problema. So dito na lang tayo ngayon mag-concentrate yung sa community-based drug rehabilitation program sa baba kung paano natin ito gagawin. So maraming salamat, Doc. Before that, before continuing on, I would like to acknowledge the online presence of Dr. Eden Chua Pineda, National President, Liga ng mga Barangay. Thank you, ma'am, for attending dahil kailangan namin yung opinion ngayon ng barangay regarding the establishment of BADACs. So, from here, kung meron pa bang gusto magbigay ng opening statement from our resource persons? Pakit-check kasi limitado lang yung nakikita natin sa screen. Yung ibang online hindi natin nakikita, baka merong nagtataas ng kamay. Wala na, wala. So, there being none, meron nagsasound off?
Mr. Chair, Department of Health po.
Department of Health? You want to say something?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Mr. Chair, on Dr. Bien Liabras po, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead. You have the floor.
Mr. Chair, this is the... Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. This is with regards to, again, to Senate Bill number 242. We would like to make a statement on that, Mr. Chair, if we may. The Department of Health acknowledges the intention of Senate Bill 242 to streamline the process of admission of drug dependents. We support the passage of the proposed measure into law, Mr. Chair. However, we have some recommendations for the Honorable Committee. First, Mr. Chair, on the Section 64, is that we allow just one DOH-accredited physician to determine the treatment and rehabilitation of drug dependents and recommitment to treatment and subsequent cases to enable an evidence-based approach. Two, Mr. Chair, we recommend to minimize the barriers that limit the voluntary submission of drug dependents to proper treatment and rehabilitation to increase access to appropriate services. And three, Mr. Chair, to use the definition of drug dependency examination as reflected into Dangerous Drugs Board Regulation number 7, series of 2019, and it reads as follows. Drug dependency examination is a medical examination conducted by a DOH-accredited physician to evaluate the extent of drug abuse of a person and to determine whether he or she is a drug dependent or not, which includes medical history taking, interview, determination of criteria for drug dependency, mental and physical status, medical and psychiatric complications, and comorbidities, and the detection of dangerous drugs in body specimens through laboratory procedures. It contains an assessment of the extent of drug dependency medical complications and presence of comorbidities and recommend appropriate interventions thereof. We respectfully submit, and if the Honorable Committee and the Honorable Chair would allow us, we shall submit our position paper after the committee hearing, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much po.
Thank you, Dr. Liabres. Maraming salamat. Pasensya ka na at nagka-problema yung hindi kayo nagka-problema. Kami dito nagka-problema ng linya. Ayun na, okay na. Bumabalik na. Maraming salamat for that. I would like also to recognize ASEC Ronald Cardema of the National Youth Commission. Welcome, ASEC Ronald Cardema. You want to say something? You have the floor. If you want to give your opening statement, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, maraming salamat po mula po sa National Youth Commission. Kami ay nagpapasalamat sa ating mga senador sa inyong mga panukalang batas po dahil kami po naniniwala kami na ngayong panahon na ito, panahon ni Pangulong Duterte, malakas ang ating laban sa illegal na droga. Mula sa hanay ng mga kabataan na binibiktima lagi ng droga, talaga nakikita namin, sir, yung magandang resulta mula sa ating administrasyon. Ngunit baka kapag nagpalit ng administrasyon, ayaw nating mawala yung ganitong kalakas na laban sa droga. So nandito ang inyong mga panukalang batas na sana maging batas na po. Lalo na po yung patungkol dito sa sa mga ADAC, sir, yung Anti-Drug Abuse Councils ng kada LGU, pati yung creating a rehab center for juvenile rugby users, sir. Kasi yung mga kabataan, alam niyo, sir, talaga minsan naaawa tayo bakit merong sa lansangan natin sa Metro Manila nakakakita pa tayo ng nagda-drugs, nagra-rugby na kabataan. Minsan binababaan namin pag nakikita namin, hindi rin namin alam kung saan dadalhin minsan pag kinausap namin yung rugby boy. Pero pakiramdam namin at alam naman natin to, kung hindi sila maalagaan ng kanilang mga magulang, meron tayong sinasabing parents patriae. Ang kanilang pinakamagulang ay ang Estado, ang ating gobyerno, kaya dapat tayo makialam, sir. So nagpapasalamat tayo sa mga panukalang batas na ito at full support po ang National Youth Commission. And kami po, nung ibinalik ang SK noong 2018 under the Duterte administration, ang unang ginawa po namin, nakipag-partner kami sa Dangerous Drugs Board para lahat ng youth leaders, SK leaders, ay oriented sa illegal drugs and sa laban ng ating gobyerno. So kami po ay patuloy na sumusuporta sa laban ng ating national government sa illegal drugs. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair, at ating mga senador po.
Thank you, ASEC Ronald Cardema, for that statement, and thank you for recognizing the fact that we really need to institutionalize everything before we are done and gone with this administration. So maraming salamat, kaya ito binibilisan natin para kahit wala na tayo, andyan pa rin. Systems will be in place. Thank you very much. I would like to pose this question to the DDB and DOH. During the first hearing, it was mentioned, no, that the director of the center must be a physician. We find the same requirement here in the bill of Senator Villar, stating that the director must be a holder of a degree of Doctor of Medicine. Can DDB state for the record again its position on this requirement? Go ahead, DDB.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we have verbalized in our previous hearings, Mr. Chair, under our board regulation, anybody with behavioral background, expertise, can be the head of the treatment and rehab facility. Considering that majority of the functions of the head, Mr. Chair, is administrative, no, management in nature. Hindi naman po siya technical, no? So we maintain, Mr. Chair, our position. Of course, we also agree with the Department of Health, siguro sa government. Pag government, under yan ang Department of Health, then naturally, the head, kagaya ng mga hospital, is a physician. But marami pong private rehab centers, Mr. Chair, even in abroad, no, sa labas po ng ating bansa, behavioral management ang expertise po ng mga head ng rehab centers. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you po.
Thank you, sir, for that information. How about the DOH? Is it non-negotiable that the director of the center must be a physician? What will be the benefits if the requirement for the director of the center is a physician? And do you have enough doctors who want to specialize in rehabilitation of persons with drug problem? First, yung non-negotiable ba talaga ito? Talagang naka-fix na tayo dito na doktor? Go ahead, DOH.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, we agree with the Dangerous Drugs Board that for private rehabilitation centers, we may allow non-doctors, non-physicians that to head as director of the rehabilitation center, provided that they have training on the behavioral sciences. But Mr. Chair, we also agree with the Dangerous Drugs Board that for government rehabilitation centers, it must be a physician which has training on addiction medicine or psychiatry to handle it, not just any other physician. Kailangan meron siyang background. The difference, Mr. Chair, is that in government rehab centers, we handle a very large group of patients, at the very least from 100 all the way up to 1,000. And the expertise of the physician would be very helpful, not just in the rehabilitation aspect, but not just in the administration aspect, but also in the process of rehabilitation. So we support and concur with the Dangerous Drugs Board, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
So thank you. So at least establish natin na pwede pala na hindi talaga physician. Basta meron lang yung ano sinasabi mo, sir, DDP? Merong
Behavioral. Yes, sir. Background in behavioral sciences, sir.
Is that a course, DOH? May kurso bang ganyan? Psychology.
Ano siya, Mr. Chair, it's a generic.
Yeah.
Psychology.
Psychology, sociology. Okay. Thank you very much.
Social services, medicine.
Yeah, kasi alam ko, hindi naman talaga kailangan doktor ang magiging, like for example, presidente ng isang malaking hospital. Meron akong, bago lang ako nanggaling dyan sa Cardinal Santos Hospital dyan sa may San Juan. Napakalaking hospital pero yung kanilang presidente is not a physician, accountant. So, basta may managerial skills ka, magaling ka, management lang naman ito. But still, mas maganda na kung doktor na, manager pa. Mas maganda yon. Malaking bagay yon. But anyway, to continue on, back to DOH, another concern that was aired from the previous hearing was that the specific type of rehabilitation must be indicated in the establishment of these centers. The DOH stated that their aim is to establish one inpatient or residential drug treatment and rehab center per region and an outpatient drug treatment and rehab center per province. Do we know the reasons for this distinction? Why is there a need to specify these requirements? For the record lang, DOH, please explain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, the reason for that, Mr. Chair, is the number of cases based on the percentage of cases based on the severity of drug use. So based on our studies, Mr. Chair, 94 to 95% have mild substance use disorders, which will only need community-based rehab program. Sa komunidad po yan, so we are establishing the CBDR. And then we have 4 to 5% of cases would be needing an outpatient program. Nakakauwi pa sila sa bahay. And finally, only 1 to 2% of cases are severe that would need residential rehabilitation program. So based on that, Mr. Chair, if we compute that more or less, hindi natin kailangan ng maraming rehabilitation centers na inpatient, and one per region would be sufficient for the time being. And then one outpatient per province, which is accessible, would be sufficient for our moderate cases, and of course, the community-based programs. So yun po, Mr. Chair, ang rationale namin on why we could recommend that. And to add on, Mr. Chair, siguro we should also look into our highly urbanized cities for residential rehab. Siguro yun po ang na-miss out ng DOH in our last committee hearing, Mr. Chair. Palagay ko it would be feasible to add also the highly urbanized cities and the metros para sa isang residential inpatient. Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Particularly Kamanaba area, as stated by Yusek Isibere. So I see the heads of DDB, DILG, PNP nodding. So we are in agreement with your proposal. So thank you po, Doctor. Merong gusto mag-butt-in? I hear somebody? Wala. So to continue, I stated in previous hearing that the rehabilitation centers managed by the religious sector are among the most successful. Have we looked into their best practices? Are there any of them that we can perhaps emulate in our government-operated rehabilitation centers?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
One good example of which is the Diocese of Caloocan with Bishop David, who is a very critical bishop of the president. But, however, his community-based drug rehab, Mr. Chair, was successful enough to even elevate Caloocan's performance as well, which is worthy of praise. That's why we have given them an award through the Anti-Drug Abuse Council Awards for church-based groups. No, not just Caloocan, we also gave awards in Iloilo City and some parts in Mindanao as well, to recognize the efforts of the church in this campaign in rehabilitating the community-based drug rehab. They went further, Mr. Chair, hindi lang rehab. They went further by reintegration also. Yun ang nakakaligtaan natin, Mr. Chair. It's not enough that we rehabilitate them. We have to reintegrate them. Kaya kailangan pumasok yung livelihood programs ng TESDA, kailangan pumasok yung DOLE for employment, kailangan pumasok rin ang Department of Agriculture. So this is one part of helping them to really not just be rehabilitated, but to be reintegrated. Because if reintegration cannot be included in the rehabilitation, hindi siya attractive sa mga addict. Because they want also to change. But if there are no means of helping them, babalik at babalik rin sila. So reintegration, which we saw as a program in Caloocan Diocese, was fully implemented, and we are now in the process, Mr. Chair, under DDB, to put some policy for the integration as well. Ayan yung TESDA, DOLE, DepEd for alternative learning system, and of course the NYC will also be here to also assist us on that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek Isibere. Alam nyo, we may have failed to integrate that in our bills, yung the reintegration process, hindi natin isama dito. But without that, alam nyo, yung mga LGUs ay gumagawa na yan. I have observed doon sa pag-ikot ko doon sa Jinsan, meron tayo dito sa Bataan, dito sa Laguna. Automatic yun sa kanilang rehabilitation centers. Nandoon na yung learning modules about paggawa ng hollow blocks, paano mga electrical, lahat ng mga vocational courses, carpentry, ino-offer nila doon as part of their rehabilitation program. Kaya ready na yung paglabas nila from the center, the patient is already ready to face the world, armed with the necessary skills para mabuhay ng matiwasay. Kaya maganda yung punto yan. At I would like to commend the ALJ for your efforts in recognizing, and also the DDB, recognizing and awarding the LGUs and other organization, NGOs na involved dito sa program na ito, recognizing them for their good efforts. Alam nyo, nakaka-encourage yan, malaking bagay yan eh. Sa atin dito sa taas, at the national level, medyo hindi natin masyadong mapapansin yan. Pero doon sa lower level, lalo na barangay to barangay, maawardan mo yung barangay na yan na maganda yung performance ng kanilang badak or kanang anti-drug campaign program, eh magkakaroon na yan ng magtitrickle, meron ng domino effect yan sa ibang barangay kasi mag-aspire din yung ibang barangay na magkaka-award. So they will perform better. So maganda po yung ginagawa nyo, and I would like to commend the ALJ for that effort. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just to add on that, ito po yung programa lamang. We want to institutionalize the awarding system kasi pag hindi na tayo nakaupo o hindi na itong administration to, baka hindi na uli maulit. That's why we want this to be included in the bill of the Anti-Drug Abuse Council. This will be an award to be given by the agencies, hindi lang DILG to. It's an agency effort between DDB, DILG, DOH, DSWD, PNP, PDEA, NYC. Parang isahan po yan na ginawa po namin of monitoring, assessing them, auditing them, and then giving them awards. So tama po kayo. But again, my fear, Mr. Chair, this is just a program of the Duterte administration. We want it to be permanent and institutionalized. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you. For that matter, Secretariat, please take note of those comments. And also, Yusek Ichiberi, kung meron kang maibigay sa amin na matulong tungkol dyan para pag trabahuin natin yung technical working group natin, magbigay ka ng input about that reward processes or criteria or what. Thank you, salamat.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, DDB, Yusek Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, the board recently approved a reintegration model, Mr. Chair, yung pong Yakap Bayan, spearheaded by DSWD. And I see Director Helen Susara nandito yata, Mr. Chair. Maybe she can elaborate, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. Yusek Ellen Susara, are you around,
Yes.
ma'am?
Yes,
Please
sir. Good
comment on that.
morning.
You have the floor.
Good morning, Senator. On the part of the department, we do support the passage of the bill, strengthening the ADAC. However, we are proposing the strengthening of the community-based network to address the concerns of the RP Woods, and also to include in the bill the aftercare and reintegration program, wherein the department lead the Yakap Bayan program. At the moment, we already trained the LGUs, around 191 LGUs were trained on how to respond to the concerns of the RP Woods. And this will continue for 2021. The training will continue on, and we are already ready with the modules and the case management tools for our social workers and frontline service workers. That's all.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you,
Mr.
thank you very
Chairman.
much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yusek Ellen Susara. Go ahead, Yusek Ichiberi.
Thank you very much. Just to add, Mr. Chair, isa po sa nakita po namin, no? Although yes, the SWD is the head of the reintegration, ang gusto ko namin ma-integrate rin po yung ibang mga agencies who can really help in the reintegration also. Like for example, TESDA. Nung kinausap po namin ng TESDA, wala pang malinaw na pondo para sa anti-illegal drugs. Kaya nga pinapasok namin yung Philippine Anti-Drug Strategy para ang bawat ahensya may nakalaan na pondo para sa mga addicts per region. Another is DOLE. Paano ba pumapasok ang DOLE sa pagre-reintegrate, pagbibigay ng employment sa mga PWODs natin? Another is Department of Education. Pag walang upon assessment, ang addict, kailangan lang pala ng alternative learning system, ay bigyan ho natin. So, Mr. Chair, kailangan talaga, aside from DSWD, other agencies who can really be of help in the reintegration should be part of this program. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Tama, thank you, thank you. Tama po yun. dapat lahat ng government agencies na involved, their integration should be mandated by this law to give their share in this program. So take note, Secretariat. Well, to continue, nandito bang NBI? NBI, please sound up.
Yes, Your Honor.
Andyan, NBI?
Yes, Your Honor.
I just would like to get your clarification from you. Kasi with regards to this bill, yung itong bill na baka nakaligtaan natin ito. Itong Attorney Galicia. Yung comment nila. Yung bill na eventually would decriminalize drug use. Nasabi natin dito na pag nahuli yung isang drug user, ay instead na ikulong, hindi na ikukulong. Sila'y pupunta na sa drug rehabilitation center, i-rehabilitate. Ang comment ninyo is that it will encourage further drug use dahil nga hindi na criminalize. Baka dadami yung drug user. Can you elaborate on that, NBI?
Yes, Your Honor. What we're trying to say, if the drug user is arrested for the second time, that will encourage more drug use. Because people, those who are inclined to use drugs will just say, it's okay to use drugs because we're just gonna be rehabilitated. Now, if it's only one-time deal, we believe there's in giving people second chances. If it's only one time, and that's okay. But if it's a second time and the third time, and these people will get away with drug use, then there will not be scared to use drugs.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Anyway,
Your Honor.
medyo mahina ang signal mo, NBI.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Sige, go ahead, continue. Yan, medyo narinig na kita.
Yes, Your Honor. What we're trying to say, if it's only a first offender, that's okay. We believe that these drug users deserves another chance. But if it's a second time and a third time offender, then these people will just think that it's okay to use drugs because they're just going to the hospital or to a rehab center or to the barangay integration program. This will not discourage people from using drugs, Your Honor, if they're just going to be treated or they're going to be spoiled.
Thank you, Attorney Jonathan Galicia for that input. Actually, medyo na-awaken ako doon sa comment ninyo. And I realize na that this particular provision of the bill should be considered, we should take a second look on this. Anyway, pag-aaralan pa namin ito, pag-aaralan natin ito para lalong gaganda. Thank you for that comment. Thank you for that comment.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Pwede na siguro tayong lumipat sa next part, yung part 2 natin, yung Anti-Drug Abuse Councils. Yun ang itatakil natin ngayon. I would like to ask the ALG, how many barangays have been cleared as drug-free to date? What are the guidelines used to declare a barangay as drug-free? Are there... Tuloy-tuloy ko na lang ha, Yusek ha, para nakasulat kasi itong question ng aking legis eh, kaya basahin ko na lahat para tuloy-tuloy na rin yung sagot mo. Pakitake note na lang ha, ulitin ko. How many barangays have been declared as drug-free to date? What are the guidelines used to declare the barangay as drug-free? Are there ADACs established in these cleared barangays? Have you conducted a study as to the effectiveness of the establishment of an ADAC vis-a-vis drug clearing operations in barangays? Please respond, Yusik Sibere.
Mr. Chair, much as I want to answer all, mukhang mas makakasagot po niya ng PIDEA because the drug clearing policy is a new policy that is being implemented by Director Wilkins. But for DILG's purposes, Mr. Chair, the Anti-Drug Abuse Council, as we have mentioned, is a continuous evolving system where we wanted so far how we could make it more responsive to local governments in the way that they could participate properly with what PIDEA is asking from them. Kasi PIDEA pa rin po ang head natin dito, ang PNP is more of a support. So as to the policy and the drug clearing, Mr. Chair, I would yield to the opinions of PIDEA, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. PIDEA, can you respond? Sinong PIDEA ngayon? Nandito. Meron tayo PIDEA? PIDEA.
May buntag, Your Honor.
May buntag, kinsa ni?
Vince Plaza, Your Honor. PDEA, HR, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead, Vince Plaza.
Your Honor, kalagin ko lang may ask for pardon for the question, Your Honor.
Yeah, ang tanong dito is how many barangays have been cleared as drug-free to date? What are the guidelines used to declare a barangay as drug-free? May data ka ba dyan? Ilan ang barangay natin na drug-free?
Sige lang. Wait, Your Honor. So far, Your Honor, ang kulang na lang natin, as to kulang, Your Honor, nasa 40% na lang tayo for the total number of barangays nationwide. So, ang utang po natin as of this time, Your Honor, is nasa 40%. And as to exact figure, Your Honor, for a while, Your Honor, I'll check with the data na available.
Sige, go ahead. You mean to say 14? 14 na lang ang...
4-0 pa, Your Honor.
Ha?
Nasa 4-0 pa, Your Honor. 40.
Cleared.
Utang, Your Honor. 60% pa lang ang na-clear natin, Your Honor, so far.
Okay, uncleared. Remaining uncleared is 40%.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
Kung meron kang data dyan...
I'll check the specific data, Your Honor. Wait.
Sige, go ahead.
As to the procedure, Your Honor, and policy, may standing naman tayo, Your Honor, na policy on barangay clearing covered by the dangerous DDB regulation, Your Honor, na ginagamit ngayon ng PDEA at DILG at DOH nationwide, Your Honor. So, yun ang sinusundan natin as of this time. And
sige, while looking at your records, can we go back to DDB? Sir, memorize mo ba yung ating criteria for declaring a drug-free barangay?
Yes, Your Honor. Actually, it is contained in our board regulation. No, basically, Mr. Chair, we're looking at yung levels ng affectation. No, dapat wala diyang yung nagmamanufacture, no, wala ring pushing, and then ang pinakamababang level, sir, dapat wala diyang user. No? So dapat matanggal natin lahat yon. And of course, organizationally, dapat activated yung Anti-Drug Abuse Council nila at the level of the barangay. They have the following committees, Mr. Chair. Basically, it conforms with supply and demand reduction activities natin, Mr. Chair. So merong prevention, treatment activities. At the same time, merong vigilance din, no? Merong enforcement na tinitignan tayo. Essentially, Mr. Chair, yun ang gist ng guidelines natin. And to be exact, Mr. Chair, as of August 31, September 2020, out of the 42,045 barangays nationwide, na-clear na po ng ating PIDEA, 20,000, PIDEA and PNP, 20,165. So what remains to be cleared, Mr. Chair, the remaining 14,171. Konti na lang yun, Mr. Chair, and I believe kaya natin yan, sir. Lalo na kung ma-approve itong mga bills natin to strengthen the Anti-Drug Abuse Council. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, may I...
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Yusek Echeverri. Thank you, sir.
Just to interject with what Yusek Benji has mentioned, yung purpose ng bill na ito, isa sa naging problema po ng local government based on Dangerous Drugs Board regulation, ang accountability lang pala po ng local government is number one, to allot a substantial amount of funds, number one.
Yes.
Number two, to create drug prevention activities. At number three, help in the community based. Pero ito pong problema po namin, Mr. Chair, na pinoproblema po ng DILG. Kapag ba sinabi mong allot substantial amount, ito ang pinoproblema, ang hirap po i-audit nun. Kasi maraming sa mga local government, including the barangay, they would say, pag naglaan po ako ng 1,000 pesos, substantial na yan. Pag sinabi ho ng munisipyo, naglaan ako ng 5,000 pesos, substantial na yan. Para sa kaneho, ang point po namin, it is so subjective. If it is subjective, magmumukha pong walang relevance, in short. Ibig sabihin, any local government unit can put a small amount and that for them is substantial. Doon ho kami nagkakaproblema. Kaya tuloy, lahat ng mga activities na accountable ang mga local government, wala na sila magamit na pondo kasi para sa kanila, substantial po yon. Kaya nga po, inilagay po namin sa bill na yan at the minimum, baka naman po pwede, minimum of 2% or minimum of 5% would be given and allotted for Anti-Drug Abuse Council. Why? Kasi nagbigay kayo ng mandatory na 5% sa Gender and Development, 1% sa Barangay Protection for Children. Kung tutusin nyo nga ho, maliit na halaga lang naman ang hinihingi namin para sa ganun, lahat ng mga LGUs meron talaga nakaalat na para dyan. At yun lang po ang titingnan namin. But yung sinasabi po namin is only minimum. Minimum of 2% or minimum of 5% will do. It would range to that. Para ho ang DILG, once we audit them, titingnan agad namin kung pasok ka sa minimum at titingnan namin based on your activities and based on the high affectation of your area, dapat ganito ang pondo ninyo. Yun po yung bill na hinihingi po namin para sa ganun, maging responsive na ang mga LGU. Dahil hindi makakagalaw ang LGU kung walang pondo rin nung inilalaan para doon.
Thank you, Yusek Echeverri. In line with that statement, I would like to solicit the reaction of ULAP. Kasi alam ko, based on your position paper, you oppose the proposed mandatory allocation of not lower than 2% of the LGU's annual appropriation. May we know from ULAP? Can you respond? Kala ko meron na yung barangay kanina. Aliga na, hindi to ULAP, no? National President of ng mga barangay. LCP saan? Ano LCP? League of Cities, nandito ba? So kung wala, si Dr. Ellen Chua Pineda, yung president ng Liga ng mga Barangay. Can you get your comment, ma'am? Dr. Eden Chua Pineda. Andito ba? Umalis na. Thank you. So kung wala...
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for DDB, Mr. Chair. I would just like to support the statement of USEC RJ, Mr. Chair. Other programs had been allocated substantial percentages, no, under the internal revenue allocation. Itong drugs po, priority po ito, and we believe pag na-address po natin itong droga, marami pong ma-address. Yung sinabi kanina ni USEC RJ, even yung persons deprived of liberty, mababawasan, liliit ang gastos natin. On the other hand, Mr. Chair, marami pong pwedeng sakupin ang budget for drugs, no? Pwede pong ilagay yan sa family programs, pwedeng ilagay sa sports, pwedeng ilagay sa health, no? Pwedeng ilagay sa livelihood programs. So marami pong pwedeng programa na maaaring ibigay ang ating LGU pag naibigay natin at least yung minimum na ipeg na natin na Mr. Che, kung kaya ng 5%, pasok naman po lahat doon yung mga programang ating nabanggit, no? So yun lang Mr. Chair, we hope na ma-consider sana yung proposal namin na at least Mr. Chair 5%, minimum of 2, no? Pero kung kaya ng 5 Mr. Chair, all the more Mr. Chair para matuldukan na itong problema ng drugs. Thank you Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, just to interject also,
Yeah, go ahead, Yusek Echeverry.
there's no basis for the LGUs to even complain at this point in time. Remember, we have the Bandanas ruling now, and they'll be getting more funds. Isa sa tinitingnan po ngayon ng DILG kung paano nila madadagdagan yung mga programa pwede nilang ilan. Dahil sa sobrang daming pondo makukuha nila, baka naman konting kurot lang ng konti para sa anti-illegal drug, hindi naman ho sa makakasama. Because if you will look at it, Mr. Chair, sa Regional Peace and Order Council, ang karamihan ng problema dyan, drugs eh. Pag pinag-usapan ng krimen, nakakabit ang drugs. So if you could address drugs, the crime will be even resolved. Eh ang iba pang mga issues naman ng Regional Peace and Order Council, insurgency, at yung iba pa. Pero kung if you'll focus on anti-illegal drug campaign, and the local government will have substantial amount to fight it out, eh mas bababa po ang krimen po natin. And I think that's the reason why we have this dangerous drugs law, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
I definitely agree with you, Yusek Echeverry. As far as this, the chair is concerned, I agree with everything that you said, and I fully support. Kung pwede nga lang, bakit 2% lang? Baka pwede pa natin laki-lakihan konti. And with the windfall of resources, with the windfall of funds that will be accruing to them via the Mandanas ruling, ay chicken na sa kanila itong 2% na mawawala sa kanila. At hindi naman ito mawawala sa kanila. Magagamit man nila ito sa problema nila sa droga. So, yan ang pinaka-daunting task nila ngayon. Paano nila resolbahin ang problema ng droga sa kanilang lugar. So dapat hindi sila mag-oppose dito. But anyway, we have to listen to their opposition. But since wala sila dito ngayon, tanungin na lang natin yung DBM. At DOM at saka DBM at saka DOF. Meron tayo dito taga DBM? Anybody from DBM?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Senator.
Yes, go ahead, DBM. Can you react to that?
Yes, po.
You have the floor.
Regarding po sa mandated 2% ng LG budget.
Sandali ha. Pakiklaro, lakasan mo kunti boses mo at alam mo yung tinga ko sa kakaputok ng parel, medyo, pasensya ka na, medyo bungol-bungol na ba? Yung tawag nan?
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Bingi na. Please go ahead. Marinig na kita. Thank you.
Regarding po the mandated 2% for the LGUs to appropriate of their annual appropriations, it is the position po of the TPN that it may be proved to be onerous po, especially to those LGUs belonging to lower income classes. We are of the view that if the LGUs will be obliged to appropriate the said amount, their delivery of similarly important basic services and facilities may be significantly prejudiced. Moreover, it may be too restricted for LGUs and may be considered against the local fiscal autonomy, which is guaranteed under the 1987 Constitution and RA number 7160. Thus, we are of the opinion that the provision may be more reasonable kung bibigyan natin ng greater flexibility yung LGUs to determine the amount which they deem is substantial or appropriate for their respective anti-drug related programs, projects, and activities. Ayun na lang po, sir. Thank you po.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chair.
Gusto ko lang...
Mr. Chair.
Dadali, Yusek Echeverry. Balikan ko muna yung DBM. Gusto ko lang marinig. agree kayo dito o hindi? Hindi ko masyado putol-putol yung narinig ko eh.
Mr. Chair, if I may, DDB. With all due...
Sandali lang, DDB. Balikan ko lang muna, DBM. Ma'am, DBM? Hello? Nandiyan ka ba?
Yes, po, Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
Yes,
hindi ko masyado narinig. Gusto ko lang makuha kung agree kayo dito o hindi.
We are opposed po of mandating the LGUs to appropriate a certain percentage. We want po na they are given flexibility po in to appropriating po funds. So instead po of saying na 2%, they may appropriate the needed amount chargeable to their local funds. And lang po, Mr. Chair, we're not opposed for it to be not chargeable to the local funds. We are opposed for fixing a certain percentage, sir. We are proposing or recommending po that the LGUs be given the flexibility since they know naman po in their local jurisdictions what is needed po. Ayan po, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, DBM. Back to Yusik Echeverry. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I hope DBM looks into the fact that there's already a mandanas ruling wherein the local government will be having more funds. Doon nga ho kami ngayon namang problema kung paano namin i-guide ang mga local governments on how to spend the excessive funds that they'll be getting. Second, Mr. Chair, if you will analyze the other mandatory allocation of budgets of LGU, namely the gender and development, which is 5%, and the barangay and the protection for children, which is just 1%. Ang tanong ko nga, ito nga medyo malabo pa nga on how the local governments would implement it. Pero all I'm saying, Mr. Chair, this administration's priority, by this time naiintindihan sana na anti-illegal drug is an issue. Now, if we could at least allot just a fund na mandatory, mas mapapagaan ang trabaho po namin in auditing. Why? Because again, even if you gave a leverage of parang allowance for local government under the premise of substantial amount, as I have mentioned, kahit maglagay sila ng 1,000 dyan at i-justify nilang substantial yan, how can we say no? Kasi napaka-subjective ng substantial amount. We need at least a minimum amount that all LGU should observe para sa ganun, meron na talagang pondong ininakalaan para sa community-based drug rehab at reintegration at lahat ng mga campaign para makaiwas sa illegal na droga. Because again, the fight here is not just supply but prevention. We are fighting for the prevention, Mr. Chair. Kaya nga, if this will not be given, again, babalik ulit tayo sa sistema dati, which is not working at all. No, ito yung nakita namin policy gap sa panahon lang ni Presidente Duterte ito. Nakita nga ho namin yung policy gap na the allocation for substantial amount is not really working for LGU. You have to allot as a fixed amount for them. Minimum lang ho, hindi ko sinasabi yun na. Minimum fixed amount para sa ganun persado silang maglaan ng ganitong amount at ang trabaho naman namin sa DILG, tingnan kung itong mga amount na to ay nagastos ng maayos. Pero kapag bumalik tayo sa substantial amount, Mr. Chair, ang mangyayari uli sa amin, may mga LGUs dyan, even barangay, maglalagay yan ng zero. Why? Because for them, they don't have enough funds. They will always justify that. More so yung mga narco-politician na mayor at mga barangay. Pag sinabi na lang zero, wala tayong magagawa. Para sa kanila, substantial yun wala silang pondo. They will always make that as an excuse. That's what we don't want. We want all LGUs to allot automatically para sa ganon, kami, audit agad. Gawin nyo agad itong mga programang ito. But if you will say substantial, parang sinabi nyo sa amin, habulin namin sila on the matter na subjective, Mr. Chair. We want a defined, definite guidance on this matter because as I've said, Mr. Chair, this has been happening for the longest time and it's not working for us.
Kuha natin yung punto mo, Yusik Echeverry. Alam mo, ito, bigyan kita ng senaryo. Paano kung yung isang barangay kapitan ay kumukolekta doon sa mga drug syndicate sa kanyang barangay? Yung mga involved na barangay kapitan o kaya yung mayor na involved sa drugs, ay hindi lang siguro zero ang ibibigay noon, kundi baka nihaw-niho, wala ka talaga marinig doon. So ano mangyari sa barangay, sa kanyang barangay, sa kanyang kinasakupan? Malabo talaga mangyari yan. Anyway, we got your point. Pakinggan muna natin si Attorney Gilbert Espinosa ng DOF. Your opinion, Attorney Espinosa, please. You have the floor.
Good morning, Senator.
Go ahead.
Yes, we've been listening to the discussion, and as far as the DOF is concerned, regarding the revenue allotment, it's not really a matter of for us to decide, for as long as the Senate deems it in its wisdom to spend the budget in this way. The concern of DOF is more on funding all of these projects. The Mandanas ruling was mentioned.
Attorney, for a while, Attorney.
Yes, sir.
Nasa office ka ba?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Baka wala kang kasama dyan. Tanggalin mo kunti yung, yan, para marinig ka namin. Nagmamaffle yung sounds eh. Ang ganda pala ng bigote mo eh. Go ahead. Para klaro. Sige, go ahead. Please.
With my mask. As I was saying, the Mandanas ruling was mentioned, and that the budget for this would be coming from the IRA. It's a matter that's not really within the sphere of the DOF to have an opinion on, because as long as you pass the law and you need these funds, it's a matter for our department to look for funding, Mr. Senator. So we will just leave it at that the DOF does not have an opinion on this 2%, but we would like to express the department's support for the bills that are pending now, Mr. Senator. Thank you, Mr. Senator.
Thank you for that position of yours, DOF. Maraming salamat, Attorney, for your comments. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So, gusto magsalita ni Yusik Santos, Yusik Reyes ng DDB. Please, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add, Mr. Chair, we have been implementing Republic Act 9165 since 2002. It's been 19 years, Mr. Chair. The first strengthening of Barangay Anti-Drug Abuse Council memorandum circular was issued by Secretary Lina. No? Ang tagal na niyan, Mr. Chair. But again, gusto ko lang susugan yung sinabi ni Yusek RJ. Hindi talaga nag-epekto, Mr. Chair. In fact, again, 2016, 4 million. Dumadami, no? And if we continue towards this path, Mr. Chair, and we will not amend and provide specific allocation in percentage, Mr. Chair, then we will find ourselves in the same situation in the next administration, Mr. Chair. No, yun lang, Mr. Chair. Again, with indulgence to our good friend from DBM, I hope they reconsider our proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Maraming salamat po. How about the PNP? Any comment about this? Wala kayo opinion about this?
No, sir. We just support, sir, kasi kung mapansin nyo naman po, sir, yung PNP, which comes to the rehabilitations, we are on this support, sir. We are focused more on the supply reduction, sir. As to this one, sir, kung kailangan po yung assistance namin, we will provide. But we are not the number one implementer of rehabilitation, sir.
Anyway, kayo man talagang nasa ground, you are
Yes, sir.
in touch with reality. Kasi kayo man nandoon sa mga, umiikot sa mga barangay, ano nakita nyo sa mga barangay anti-drug abuse council, sa mga barangay na napuntahan nyo? Aktibo ba sila with or without this 2%?
Actually, sir, tama yung sinabi nyo kanina po, sir, na pag yung mayor po ay very active and supportive, yung pong anti-drug abuse council, sir, ay very active. Kagaya rito sir sa Metro Manila, let's say it's sir sa Metro Manila. So pag ang mayor sir ay active, napupunduhan po niya yan. At ang pondo, it varies upon the mayor's discretion. Yung mga iba naman sir, lalo na sa mga sa Visayas and Mindanao, usually hindi masyado active kasi kung nasa sa ADAC po sir, ang PNP po sir ay hindi na po direct member doon sa bagong setup ng DILG. Hindi na po kami member doon sir, parang support role na lang kami. So yun yung observation namin dyan sir. Kung hindi talaga active yung mayor at parang wala siyang pakialam, hindi siya mag-allocate ng pondo doon. So we'll support the stand of the DILG na dapat specific yung pondo na ibigay doon sir para meron talagang kuan. Kasi pati kami sir, pag pupunta kami doon, mag-consult kami sa kanila, lalo na dyan sa barangay drug clearing na yan, na kailangan yung barangay captain. Usually, pag walang pondo, walang assessment. So ang ginagamit is yung PNP assessment na nadalhin pataas. Depende po talaga sir. Kung meron talaga sir, pwede nang din sabihin na meron to na sa batas na bigyan mo kami, gawin natin niya kasi may pondo. Mas madali i-activate yung drug council po sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
Mr.
for that.
Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
You say Kichibere.
Just kung may epekto ba, simula po nung nag-umpisa tayo sa kampanyang ito of monitoring yung functionality, hindi lang pag-oorganisa ng Anti-Drug Abuse Council, yung functionality niya. Yun po napansin namin, Mr. Chair. Madali mag-organisa, pero kailangan gumagalaw siya. So ito po yung ginawa ng Dangerous Drugs Board's policy. Naglaan ng mga activities para ma-assess po namin ang mga LGU maging effective at functional. Nung inupisan ho namin yan at minomonitor ho namin yan at nag-file rin po ako ng mga kaso sa Ombudsman, naging aktibo ang mga BADAC, naging aktibo ang mga ADAC. Kaya lang po, Mr. Chair, nung tinanong po namin ng PNP at PDEA, nakatulong po ba? Mas malaking tulong at napadali po ang trabaho nila. Bakit po? Tandaan nyo po, dun sa BADAC po, yung mga pagsusumbong ng mga BADAC sa mga drug addict at drug pusher, may coordination sa police. I just would want to correct, no, yung ADAC composition natin kasama ang police diyan. Hindi pwede mawala ang Philippine National Police. Kung wala diyan, ilalagay po natin uli yan. Hindi pwede kasi mawala because what we're trying to replicate here, Mr. Chair, is the experience in Davao City na kung saan si Mayor Duterte, you yourself, and PIDEA are closely working together. That's what we're replicating in the ADAC functionality indicators ng ADAC bill because we want close participation between PNP, PIDEA, and the local government in terms of submitting the names ng mga drug user, drug pusher, at ina-assess po yan. May proseso po yan. And that is what we're trying to replicate in the ADAC bill and to institutionalize it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Yusek Echeverry. In line with that, can we request you to give us the input, yung gusto mong composition ng ADAC at all levels para ma-incorporate natin dito sa batas na ito, yung mga composition. Kasi sabi as of now, yung mga ADAC ngayon, sabi ni Chief PNP, hindi na daw membro ang PNP. So with this law, i-institutionalize natin na kasama na doon ng PNP.
Sir, yeah, the DILG version kasama po parati ang PNP at PIDEA doon. Siguro kasi marami na kasing version eh. May House version na, may Senate version, but yung DILG version po na sinabit namin kasama PNP.
Well, as confirmation to that, andito man, meron tayong Barangay Anti-Drug Abuse Council, BADAC, composition. Chairperson, punong barangay. Vice Chairman, sangguniang barangay member. Kagawad, Chairman of Peace and Order. Members, sangguniang barangay member, Kagawad Chairman of Women and Family. SK Chairperson, Public School Principal or Representative, Executive Officer, Chief Tanod. At least 2 representatives of NGO, civil society, representative of faith-based organization, advisor, city municipal chief of police representative or representative. So meaning, wala. Oh, sa barangay ito advisor ang chief of police or his representative. Sa MADAC naman, Municipal Drug Abuse Council, vice chairperson dito ang chief of police ng munisipyo. Oh, so kasama pala talaga.
Sa barangay, sir, hindi kami kasama, sir.
Sa barangay kasama kayo dito as advisor.
As advisor, sir. Yes, sir. But
So-
usually, pag nagko-convince sila, sir, as per experience ko, sir, I've been RD in Cebu, hindi na sir tinatawag yung barangay chief of police. Doon na lang yan sir, sa chief of police, doon na sa national.
MADAC,
Unlike before.
Sa munisipyo.
Oh, sir.
Sa barangay,
Oh, sir. Oh,
advisor kayo doon kasama. Pero
Yes,
kasama pa rin sa composition
sige, sir.
as advisor. So you insist, padala ka ng representative doon sa mga barangay.
Yes, sir.
Kung makukover ninyo. Pero pag hindi nyo makover, I don't know how will you do that. But anyway, at least...
Mr. Chair, yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, mahalaga po yung police at PDEA involved in the BADAC. Why? Kasi naalala ho nyo, di ba, yung programa ho natin sa DILG na Masa Masid, di ba, na natanggalan pa ng pondo. Ito yung pagsusumbong ng mga tao, ng mga citizen doon sa mga involved sa illegal drugs. At ito, kapag nagsumbong, ang manggagaling ang impormasyon sa BADAC sa barangay, ito ay dumadaan sa proseso ng checking ng police at PDEA kung totoo. So, yun po yung proseso. Kaya mahalaga ang partisipasyon ng PDEA at police sa barangayan kasi doon ang basis po natin kung saan natin makukuha ang mga impormasyon ng mga drug user, drug pusher at drug lord, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Yusek Echeverry. Maraming salamat.
Mr. Chair, if I may add,
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Naalala ko lang, Mr. Chair, in our proposal, Mr. Chair, which was adopted sa lower house version, I don't know, sir, kung naipasok natin, sir, sa Senate version, Mr. Chair, we were also proposing for creation of plantilla positions for the anti-drug abuse offices. Again, Mr. Chair, the reason why we proposed that, Mr. Chair, we found na pag nagpalit yung local chief executive, Mr. Chair, wala na, back to zero, hindi alam yung mga programa natin. And we believe, again, to institutionalize, Mr. Chair, and to strengthen itong ating Anti-Drug Abuse Council, dapat talaga, Mr. Chair, merong specific unit, may plantilla position. And ito yun, Mr. Chair, that's the reason why we have been requesting at least 5%, Mr. Chair. Anyway, it will address so many issues, Mr. Chair, peace and order, health, everything, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dinagdag ko lang, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, just to add also, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Yung sinabi ho ni Yusek Benji, Mr. Chair, isa yan sa naging issue, if you remember, Mr. Chair, na naging issue ni Vice President Robredo sa atin, na wala tayong baselining. Yung baselining na sinasabi na information gathering. Sabi nga namin, paano nga tayo makakakuha ng accurate na records kung yung mga opisina ng mga LGU na hinihingan natin ng impormasyon, talagang nawawala. Bakit? Syempre pag natalo yung mayor o natalo yung municipal mayor, syempre palit rin agad yung mga na-train na po namin yan mga na-train na namin na officers on how to gather information. Mahalaga yung data gathering because this will be our basis of checking whether we are improving in the war or in the fight against illegal drugs. So how many have we rehabilitated? How many community-based drug rehab we have rehabilitated? Ilan na nag-relapse? Ilan ang mga nahuli? Ilan yung mga So these are matters which the Anti-Drug Abuse Office should be focusing on, Mr. Chair. But since elections are happening in the local government every 3 years, you don't expect these people who were appointed by the mayor will stay and will be reappointed again by the new mayor or by the new barangay captain. That's why we were asking at least a permanent office so that the national government, meaning DDB, who has the repository of all information, at DILG, na kung saan assisting DILG in gathering, DDB in gathering the information, will have ease of gathering all this data. That's why, Mr. Chair, we really need a permanent office. As a good example, Mr. Chair, meron na ang Cebu City, meron na rin ang Caloocan City. Ang Cebu City created an ordinance for an office, permanent office, including Caloocan City, nagkaroon na rin ng office para dyan. Pero what we're asking is that there should be a mandatory creation of an office that is permanent and connected with PIDEA, DDB, and the Philippine National Police, and together with the ILG, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, you're correct, Yusek Echeverry. In fact, andito nga sa Senate Bill 1952, nakalagay naman pala dito, establishment of Anti-Drug Abuse Office. All local government units except barangays shall create an Anti-Drug Abuse Office with plantilla positions with the following function: serve as Secretariat of the Anti-Drug Abuse Councils, provide technical and administrative support services to the ADAC, and perform other functions as may be prescribed by ADAC. So andito tayo, mayroon tayong plantilla position at the municipal level, except lang doon sa barangay. So here we go. Thank you. Marami na tayong nakukover.
Sure, hindi lang po sa munisipyo po yan, ha? Province and highly urban. Hindi lang po sa munisipyo ang opisina, province and highly urbanized city, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Andito yun. Kasama na yun. Do we have DILG here? DOJ. Si attorney, sino bang DOJ natin?
Your Honor, good afternoon po.
Yes, State Counsel Charles Romulus Cambaliza. Can you give us a legal opinion on the fiscal autonomy? Yung nagbabanggaan na opinion ng DBM at saka ng DILG. Kung meron ka, kung may available ka dyan about fiscal autonomy. Thank you, sir.
Sige po. Actually, Your Honor, meron po kaming sinabit na position paper and it did not tackle the issue of fiscal autonomy. Pero po, if the chair would like me to read into the summarize for the record our position on actually all of the matters which are submitted for our comment, I'll be happy to indulge the committee po. Notably po, yung comment namin would be on yung na-mention po earlier, yung decriminalization po ng use of illegal drugs. And yun po sa establishment of drug rehab centers.
Thank you very much. Kakarating lang kasi nitong yung,
yes, opo.
Yung inyong opinion pagkakaroon ng sekretariat ito. Maraming salamat, sir. Maraming salamat.
So okay na po, Your Honor?
Yeah, okay na. Andito na sa sinabit ninyo. Pag-aralan na ito ng sekretariat. Thank you.
Thank you po.
Thank you very much. Marami pang questions dito pero I think na-discuss na ito ng DILG at saka ng DDB yung kanilang mga positions kanina. Balik lang ako sa DILG. If are you aware of this nangyari in 2019? Yusek Echeverry, Juan Saturnino Santiago, a BADAC coordinator in Valenzuela, was arrested by the NBI after an entrapment operation for extorting money from victims and threatening to include them in the drugs watch list should they not heed to his request. May we know what actions were taken against him? What safeguards do you recommend to avoid such unfortunate incident? Are you aware of other similar incidents wherein the establishment of ADAC was used as a means of corruption? Ito, bantayan natin ito. Aware ka ba nito, Yusek Echeverry?
Sir, we were aware and I think the Philippine National Police has acted on the matter. But on the part of the DILG, kasama ho sa mandate ho namin magsampa ng mga kaso sa mga local government for those who have not organized and make their ADAC functional, including all corruption issues, Mr. Chair. Last 2017, 2018, nagsampa po tayo ng mga kaso sa ombudsman. Marami rin hong na-dismiss. Bakit? Kasi nalaman rin nila eventually that my basis, which is the ADAC, is just a memorandum circular, Mr. Chair. So walang legal basis na pinangahawakan. That's why dumudulog po ako na ito ay maisa-batas na. Because by creating an ADAC, ano basis niyan? It's just a memorandum circular by the DILG. Utos ng presidente, tingnan kung talaga nagtatrabaho itong mga LGU at ginagawang yung kanilang tungkulin. Nung nakita namin, hindi nag-organisa based on DDB regulation, hindi rin ginawang functional, di sinampan namin. And there are more or less 1,000 to 2,000 of them, Mr. Chair, na nasa ombudsman. And then we are now planning to file a second set of local governments for not making their ADAC and BADAC functional, Mr. Chair. So continuous po every year ang filing ng cases namin and case build-up, including the narco-politicians, Mr. Chair. Yung binanggit ni President ng mga narco-politicians, including Congressman, I filed cases against them on behalf of the department. So kung yung to be responsive to your question, Mr. Chair, yes, the Department of Interior Local Government is not remiss on filing cases against erring local government officials as what you have mentioned, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Nice to hear that comment. Meron tayong isa pang issue dito na itatakel. According to EO number 15, series of 2017, the Interagency Committee on Anti-Illegal Drugs is tasked to ensure the comprehensive implementation of the barangay drug clearing operations. What is the institutional relationship between the existing Anti-Drug Abuse Council and the Interagency Committee on Anti-Illegal Drugs? Once institutionalized, would you recommend the ADACs to be under the authority of the ICAD? Please respond.
Mr. Chair, the ICAD is more of a whole government approach without sacrificing the mandates of each agency. So it's more of proper coordination between agencies. Kaya po namin nabuo lahat itong mga suwestyon at magagandang mga idea dahil may ICAD. At hindi pag nagawa itong batas na ito, hindi naman mawawala ang ICAD. Meaning, hindi siya pwede masailalim sa, maaari po magamit ng ICAD itong ADAC law na to further intensify its campaign under the respective agencies' mandate, Mr. Chair. So the answer is, yes, it can be a tool by ICAD. And besides, Mr. Chair, ICAD is just an executive order. Kapag may bagong presidente yan, pag ginusto na hindi implement ang ICAD, wala tayong magagawa. Pero yung ADAC, mananatili, Mr. Chair.
Okay, that's very clear na walang duplication of functions dito, ha? Walang magiging duplication of function.
Mr. Chair, if I just may susugan po ang sinabi ni Yusek Echeverry.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Mr. Chair, hindi po talaga siguro magkaroon ng overlapping function si ADAC at saka si ICAD po. Dahil po si ICAD po, ang pinaka-function lang talaga niya ay parang taga-masid. Kung totoo bang na-integrate based sa utos ni Presidente, yung lahat ng mga program, especially po yung na-conceptualize under po sa Philippine Anti-Drug Strategy natin na tinataguyod ng DDB. So, taga-masid po talaga si ICAD dahil ang mga member agency po na nandito ay yun po yung mga implementing agency na mga programang nakalista po kay DDB. So, isa na din po doon yung mga posibleng ini-implement ng ADAC programs. Pwede din po siyang tingnan ni ICAD at magkaroon ng tulong with the other government agencies. At tama po si Yusek RJ po doon. Ito po yung nag-bolt in ng lahat ng mga effort ng government agency to achieve the whole of nation na approach, Your Honor. At Susugan ko po yung sinabi kanina ni Yusik Aji po, the agency, i-express ko lang po yung support ng ahensya po doon sa ADACLO na po yan because that will give PDEA, most especially, an easy way to implement its barangay drug clearing program. Kung may ADACLO po, mas mabilis nating maipa-implement yung ating programa po sa kabarangayan natin. At present, Your Honor, updated lang po, update po doon sa ating barangay drug clearing status po, we still have to clear around 33% barangays po, Your Honor. That's around 13,928 as of January po, Your Honor. Kaya medyo marami-rami pa po, Your Honor. Kung yung ADACLO na po yan ay ma-aprubahan po, baka mas speed up natin yung pag-clear ng ating mga barangay para po menos na po yung problema natin, Your Honor. Daghang salamat.
Thank you, Vince Plaza. Alam mo, kung tingin mo, kung mabilis natin itong masyabatas, itong ADACLO na ito, kakayanin pa ba before the term ends ng Duterte administration? Makamit natin yung 100% cleared barangays? What do you think?
Your Honor, kami nila Yusik Benji at Yusik RJ ay masyado kaming positive na with all the mechanisms in place. Your Honor, talagang problema lang tayo in the past na mechanism on rehab, mechanism on ADAC ay absent kaya hindi natin ma-push truly yung ating pag-clear ng mga barangay, Your Honor. And naniniwala kami with this effort na pag na-approve yung matagal na po pinag-usapan sa table yung dream ni Yusik RJ na pag sana meron yan, Your Honor, baka zero po tayo ng goal bago po magtapos si Presidente.
Maraming salamat. Thank you for your optimism. Thank you for your optimism.
We believe, Your Honor.
Kayang-kaya natin ito sa totoo lang kahit na nga wala yung mga. Anyway, mahirap na magsalita. Basta gawin natin ang kaya natin gawin, di ba? Tumatawa si General Debolsinas. Tumatawa siya. Thank you for that comment. Siguro we have gusto ko lang sana talagang makapag-comment itong why the opposition coming from the ULAP, coming from the League of Municipalities about the 2% para kaso hindi pa sila nagpapakita. Dapat andito sila para marinig natin yung kanilang opposition. Bakit? Kasi anyway, since wala sila dito, then this bill will not stop from rolling kung hindi sila magpakita. So, from here, I think we have discussed a lot of things already. Maybe we can adjourn and just form a technical working group to improve this bill. Lalong-lalo na from DDB and from DILG, Yusik Ichibiri, we really need your inputs para maganda itong kalalabasan ng batas na ito. And also PDEA, PNP. Kayo man talaga mga main players dito. PDEA, PNP, DDB, DILG, and yung mga local governments sana. But anyway, again, I would like to thank you. Maraming salamat sa inyong pag-attend. Your valuable inputs are very much appreciated in crafting this bill. Sana huwag kayo magsawang mag-attend pag magpatawag tayo ng hearings. Thank you very much to General Debolsinas for bringing your whole staff. Hindi man kompleto, pero yung pertinent staff na kinakailangan natin nandito. Wala na kayo sabihin. General Ludan, General Lee, General Magday. Ako may sasabihin. Hindi pa nyo ako binlow out dyan sa inyong promotion. Nagsipag-general na kayo. Nagsipag-general na kayo, hindi pa kayo nag-blow out sa akin. Nag-approve si Chief PNP, Nag-approve. Kaya you owe me blow out. So, sir, maraming salamat. Yusik Echeverry, Sir Santos, Reyes, Santos ako na Santos, Reyes, and si PDEA natin, General Sermonia, DBM, DOJ, NBI, Department of Finance, DOH. Oy, si DOH pala. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. And from here, I think adjourn natin? Yeah. We will form the DWG and this hearing is adjourned.